What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down the route tree. So we're going to be talking about routes 7, 8, and 9. So that's going to be a corner, a post, and a fade. We already made 2 other videos on routes 1 through 3 and then 4 through 6. So this is the final part of our 3-part series. So I hope this video helps you guys out. I hope it teaches you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you would like to get faster, check out that very first link in the description below where you could get access to 75 plus speed and agility drills, all for you guys to improve your athleticism. We organize the videos into specific categories so the information is easy to retain, easy to learn, and we also include workout plans with the exact sets and reps to follow for you guys to get faster in the gym and on the field. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested. Let's get started with this video. So now, like I said, we're going to be going over a corner route first, then we're going to look at a post, and then we're going to look at a fade. And we're going to talk about all of the different coverage looks that are the most challenging on these routes. So we're going to talk about like a fade versus zone coverage. We're going to talk about a post versus inside shade off man coverage. And we're going to talk about a corner versus outside shade, like press coverage, if you will. Okay, that's the first one. So this is a clip here from Tank Dell. So this DB is not like quite like press right up on the line of scrimmage. I would consider it more of like a catch technique where he's like sitting 2 yards, maybe like 2.5 yards away, but he's outside shade. So we have to remember anytime that we were running an outside breaking route, that's like a corner or like an out route or like maybe even a fade in some cases, and you have outside shade coverage, that DB's whole goal is to not let us go outside. When you come up to the line of scrimmage, wherever he is shaded, if he's shaded outside, if he's shaded inside, his goal is not to let us run there. That's why he has that leverage. He wants to force us in the opposite direction. So you might think like, yeah, this is one-on-ones. He doesn't have safety help, but in a real game, when you see outside leverage, he's going to have safety help. If this receiver just like attacked him and ran like a post route and one-on-ones with his split cut down, and by split cut down, I mean he's lined up closer to the lineman or to his left tackle, I guess you could say, nobody cares. Like if you just take off and go run, that's not a realistic route. So what we have to do is we have to get comfortable when I have this outside leverage coverage, taking an inside release on an outside breaking route. And that's when you would want to use it versus outside shade coverage. Outside shade press, outside shade catch technique, maybe where he's sitting right at 5 yards, we have to get comfortable taking the inside release. Because if your whole game plan is, okay, I have outside shade, I'm going to go up to him and give him a hard fake outside, that DB is taught to stay disciplined. He is taught to hold his leverage. So if you go out and you attack him, he's just going to keep that leverage. He's just going to sit right there and be discipline. At least a talented DB will. So what we have to do is we have to come up, we have to close the space if I need to close space. If that DB's 2 yards away from us, I got to bring that line of scrimmage 2 yards forward. And what I mean by that is doing what Tank Dell does here. You see how he takes this kind of hop step, if you will, into his like split release, right? He closes the space, then hits the split release. Now, if this DB was right up on the line of scrimmage, he doesn't need to close the space. He could just hit that split release, give a little fake inside, and take the inside release, right? So, guys, it's all about attacking distance or closing distance and attacking leverage when you have outside shade coverage with an inside breaking route. So now he takes the inside release. He attacks him, holds him to the outside, does his job, and takes the inside release. Now, why do we want to do that, number one? Number one, for timing. Because if you guys try to force an outside release and this DB's outside shade, whenever he's in man-to-man coverage, what's his goal? He's going to get hands, right? Now, I'm not saying as a receiver you want to avoid contact, but you want to avoid unnecessary contact. If you try to force the outside and he's getting hands and he's forcing us, like he's forcing us all the way to the outside, that screws up the timing with the quarterback. That quarterback is going to move to another route. And also, let's say you do end up getting around him, but he does get hands initially, and you break to this corner and you got maybe 5 yards of space and a DB who's right on your hip. That quarterback will never throw that pass. That goes for an out route and that goes for a corner route. You need to give him space to throw you open. That's why you take the inside release, and we need to keep timing. Now, I know what some of you are thinking is if I take this inside release right here, well, what if I'm not able to stack him? Because Tank Dell runs this great because he's able to stack the DB. Stacking means when you're right over the top and this DB is trailing your hips. He's essentially running behind you. So now you could give him like a hard fake inside, right? You give him a hard fake, this DB bites, and then we got all this space with separation. That's easy money. But what if the DB's faster than us? What if he stays right on my hip, right on my shoulder? Well, something you could do is, again, you got to be able to react. As a receiver, it's about having a plan. It's about playing fast, but you have to also react fast. So if that DB is playing it well and he's right at your hip, you could slip under him, right? Use this hand, swat him by on the back of his shoulder, back of his hip, and slip under, run an out route, slip under, run a corner route. You have the space to do it and react to the throw from the quarterback. So fellas, we can't just get so caught up, okay, if I have an outside breaking route, I must take an outside release. We have to get comfortable taking an inside release on an outside breaking route, and then obviously vice versa. So now, next route we're looking at on the route tree, an 8, is going to be a post. So now, this is a question that a lot of people will ask me. How do I run a post route if this DB is sitting inside shade and off coverage, right? So our post is at about 8 to 10 yards. DB's sitting about 7 to 8 yards off inside shade. So normally, if we had to run a post route and this DB was pressed up inside shade, what would you do? You'd attack him inside, you'd take an outside release, and you would try to stack. Just like the last example. It's just the opposite way, right? Remember, this DB on the last example was outside shade, and we had to run an outside breaking route. So we attacked him and took the inside release and tried to stack. But now, since this DB's 7 to 8 away, and our break's at 8 to 10, we can't really attack him for 8 yards, outside release for only 10, and then break. Or only 2 yards, right? This is not enough time, right? There's not enough space in order for us to restack him. So what you have to do is you kind of have to split him into two. You have to attack his outside shoulder and his outside hip. The goal is to get him to flip his hips to a fade, and we slip underneath. So that's how you would run a post versus off man. So let's look at this example here. So this receiver comes off, gives a little hesitation, attacks the outside shoulder, and then is able to slip underneath running a post. So again, why do we do that? Again, it worked, right? But why wouldn't you try something like a little bit maybe simpler in a way? Why wouldn't you try to stem him to the inside and attack his midline or attack his toes, then break to the post? Well, number one, remember, he's inside leverage for a reason. He's trying to take away the inside route. So the second you start to stem to the inside, this DB is going to keep his leverage because he is trying to stay disciplined. That's the whole reason he has his leverage. If he gets beat to the inside while he's playing inside shade off man, he's going to get ripped by his DB coach. And he doesn't want that to happen. That's his responsibility. So the second you start to attack him inside, he's just going to do something called a weave. And then when you break to the post, you're running right into him. Now, let's also say this. Let's say you attack inside, he weaves, but then you try to break off in front of him. And you're running this post and you end up past the hash mark. That's not very good spacing on the play, and that could also disrupt timing, guys. We need timing and we need spacing, and that's why we attack his outside shoulder, because that gives us plenty of space to run and actually run the route that was designed, not an inside stem post, and that also keeps timing with my QB, right? So now, when he comes off the ball, you see how he gives a little hesitation skip right here? This little change in tempo. All that does is sell the fade a little bit more to this DB. That little change in tempo slows him down, and then we accelerate to his outside shoulder selling fade, and that change in tempo makes it look like a fade. Maybe we've ran that before. Maybe I've done that on film, and the DB has seen me work that change in tempo before. Whatever it is. But remember, it's about pairing our routes and pairing our releases together. Now, the only way, because a lot of you guys might be hesitant on this move. You might be thinking, well, if I attack his outside shoulder, what if he doesn't turn his hips? He's not going to turn his hips if we don't make him turn his hips. So remember, what goes into every single route? This is day one advice. What are we trying to make the DB think on every route? We're doing a fade, right? So if I'm trying to make him think I'm doing a fade, I got to actually sell the fade. I come off the ball for these 3 steps at his outside shoulder. Hips and shoulders are committed. He is not raising up with his chest. He's not raising his head up. He's taking long strides. He's running hard. This DB has to commit, guys, because he doesn't want to get beat deep, especially an off man. So if you're a salesman, if you can sell this thing enough, that is going to get you that separation. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by this receiver coming off, showing how you should run a post route versus inside shade off man. So now, next example, we probably get the most questions about this specific route, the 9 route, the fade route, versus outside leverage, zone coverage. So cover 3, cover 4. And again, some of you might say, well, coach, I'm not getting the ball anyways. This DB's off, my quarterback, he ain't going to throw that. Our coach tells him not to throw that. Listen, if you're open and you can get open and we see it, let's say, for example, some of you might play high school football and you got the iPads on the sideline where you're watching film after every single drive, right? Or maybe your just receiver can tell you this, but he comes off the field and he ran a fade and he got this guy and he knows he's faster than him, and we run 4 verts even if he's in zone. and he could get him. Let's get him a chance. Let's give him the ball. Let's give him a shot, right? Maybe we don't think that pre-snap that we're going there with the ball, but if you can create separation, we'll give you a chance with that ball from a quarterback and offensive coordinator perspective. So what you would do on this is you would not try to run around the DB. You would not try to attack his blind spot. You would use something called a vertical set, which is essentially like a hard fake to the inside, trying to get this DB to crash down. So let's watch this thing full speed. So this receiver, this is a great example of a vertical set. He does a little bit of an inside stem. You don't need to worry too much about that. I don't think that's like super necessary, but it is important, I guess, on this one. But if you have a DB who's outside shade, you got to understand, remember, just like the first example, even if he's in zone, what is his goal being outside shade? Don't get beat to the outside. Don't get beat on a fade. Don't get beat on an out, a comeback, a corner. So, but where he, again, it's still zone. Like, he's still playing defense. If you could get like a hard enough fake to the inside, maybe that guy will crash down. And if we make it really believable, he might think that it's a post, guys, and that can get us space. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to just like try to run around him, because this DB, again, will start to weave, squeeze us to the sideline, and quarterback won't have any space to throw us on a fade. So what we have to do, like I said, is a vertical set. It's a hard jab with the inside foot, your hips, your shoulders. You got to step there if we want that DB to crash down, and then we could slip out to the outside. And guess what? Even if this DB plays it well, let's say this DB doesn't stumble right here, and he's right on my hip, my quarterback has room to fade me now because I didn't just try to run around the DB. So you would close the space. You'd step on the DB's toes and give that hard vertical set fake to the inside. If we get him to crash, that gives us a lot of space to the outside. And if he doesn't crash, okay, fine. But chances are, if you sell this thing correctly and you step onto his toes and you really close space, that's enough to get that guy to crash when you have to run a fade versus zone coverage. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like 75 plus speed and agility drills, all organized into categories for you guys, and we give you the exact sets and reps to do and speed workout plans, check out that very first link in the description below for our first down speed training. I'll see you guys next time.